In this video, we will discuss how to write strong and testable acceptance criteria, plus how the frameworks like MoSCoW fit into all of this. One of the most important insights that many beginners overlook is the difference between the importance and completion. These two ideas are handled by two different concepts. One is the MoSCoW prioritization and second is the acceptance criteria. MoSCoW helps you to decide what actually matters. It forces you to categorize the features into must have, should have, could have, or won't have. It answers the question, how important is this feature? Acceptance criteria, on the other hand, answers a completely different question, that is, when can we say that this feature is done? So this distinction is very critical. Before you even begin writing detailed acceptance criteria, you need to know whether a feature deserves that level of attention or not. Not every feature should be treated equally. MoSCoW is a prioritization framework used in project management and agile teams to answer one key question: what should we build first and what can wait? MoSCoW stands for these four things like must have. A must have feature requires deep thinking, edge case handling, and strict validation rules. So this is critical. Without this, the product fails. Should have is important but not blocking. Could have feature might only need lightweight or even deferred criteria, so it is nice to have but optional. Won't have for now explicitly decides the out of scope things. So let's take a real example. Imagine you are building a login system. In must have criteria, you can say the user can log in with email and password. So if this doesn't work, the system is useless. In should have, you can enclose remember me option. This improves the UX, but it is not critical. Could have may have functionalities like social login, maybe Google or Facebook. So this adds convenience, but it is optional. Won't have, for example, we may say that we have biometric login as a won't have feature for now. MoSCoW acts as a filter. It determines which features deserve detailed acceptance criteria and which ones can be handled more lightly. Once priorities are clear, acceptance criteria steps in to define exactly how each feature will be validated. Now let's move to acceptance criteria. After establishing what matters most, the next step is to define what success looks like. This is where acceptance criteria come in. So acceptance criteria are essentially a set of specific and you can say measurable conditions that must be met for a feature to be accepted as complete. They remove the ambiguity and ensure that everyone involved, that is the developers, tester, and stakeholders, share the same understanding of what done actually means. However, in practice, many teams struggle with writing effective acceptance criteria. It is very common to see vague statements like, for example, user can log in, system is fast, page loads correctly. So while these may sound reasonable at first glance, they quickly fall apart in real world scenarios. Problem with these statements is that they are open to interpretation. A developer might believe that the work is complete, while a tester might find issues and stakeholder may still feel dissatisfied. So this disconnect happens because the criteria are not precise and they are not testable. Acceptance criteria are far more than just a checklist. They serve three critical roles at the same time. First, they act as a formal agreement between the business stakeholders and the development team. Everyone aligns on what is expected before the work even begins. Second, they function as a clear instructions for developers. Instead of guessing requirements, developers can build features with confidence, knowing exactly what conditions must be met. Third, testers can directly validate whether each condition has been met or has been satisfied or not. So this makes acceptance criteria incredibly powerful. So they are a single, you can say, artifact that supports communication and development and testing all at once. Now let's move on to writing strong acceptance criteria. To understand how to write effective acceptance criteria, it helps to start with a clear and simple user story. For example, as a user, I want to log into the system so that I can access my dashboard. Once the user story is defined, the next step is to translate it into testable conditions. Instead of tracking or thinking abstractly, you ask, what must be true for this feature to be considered complete? A widely accepted best practice is the given, when, then format. So this structure makes the requirements precise and easy to test using the three combination like given and when and then. For instance, you might define that given a user is on a login page, when they enter a valid credentials, then they should be directed to the dashboard within a specific time frame. For example, we can say 2 seconds. But strong acceptance criteria do not stop at the happy path. One of the biggest mistake teams make is ignoring the edge cases. So real world system must handle the incorrect inputs, the missing data and security scenarios. So you can also define conditions for invalid passwords, ensuring that appropriate error messages are displayed and the user remains on the login page. You account for empty fields by requiring validation messages. You even include security rules such as locking the account after multiple failed attempts. So when acceptance criteria reaches this level of detail, they eliminate the confusion entirely. Developers know exactly what to build, testers know exactly what to verify, and product owners knows exactly when the feature is complete. Now let's connect the MoSCoW with the acceptance criteria. So the real strength comes from combining MoSCoW prioritization with acceptance criteria. Once you assign a priority to a feature, it directly influences how detailed its acceptance criteria should be. For a must-have feature like login functionality, you create comprehensive acceptance criteria. So this includes full edge case coverage, performance expectations and security rules. So these features are critical, so they demand rigor. For a should have feature such as, for example, remember me option, the acceptance criteria might be or can be simpler. You still define expected behavior, but you may not go as deep into edge cases unless necessary. For a could have feature like social login, you might keep acceptance criteria minimal, or you can say you can even delay writing them until the feature becomes a higher priority. So the key insight here is that priority determines the depth. High priority features require strict, detailed acceptance criteria, while low priority features can be handled more lightly. So you start by creating a story such as user login, then you assign a priority using MoSCoW, either through the labels or through priority fields. Option 1 is using priority fields. Go to the story created, move to configure, then move to the story. There you can see the priority. Click it, click the save changes. Now you can see the priority field in story where you can select the relevant priority. You can map MoSCoW like this, like for medium you can map it to should have, highest or high level can be mapped to must have, low or lowest could be mapped to could have. So this is quick and works well for small teams. After that, you add acceptance criteria directly into the story description. These criteria clearly define all expected behaviors, including the valid scenarios, error handling, and edge cases. During development, the team uses these criteria as a guide, and developers build according to them, testers validate against them, and the story is only marked as complete when all the criteria are satisfied. Next option is to use labels. Open the story, find labels field, add one of the labels like from the 4, like we have MoSCoW must, MoSCoW should, MoSCoW could, or MoSCoW want. So this is cleaner and more explicit than priority. Next step is to add the acceptance criteria. So open your story, scroll to the description section and add clearly written acceptance criteria, like for example we can have acceptance criteria like valid login redirects to dashboard within 2 seconds, invalid logins show error messages, empty fields trigger validation, 5 failed attempts lock the account. So you can use the bullet points or numbered list for clarity. Here are some common mistakes to avoid. There are few common pitfalls that can weaken your acceptance criteria. One major mistake is mixing the requirement with the design details. For example, specifying UI elements like button colors is not acceptance criteria, it is a design guidance. Another issue is vagueness. Statements like system should be fast are again meaningless unless they define measurable thresholds such as response times. Finally, many teams fail to consider edge cases. Focusing only on happy path leads to gaps that cause issues later in the development or testing. So MoSCoW and acceptance criteria complement each other in a powerful way. MoSCoW tells you what matters most. It ensures your time and effort are focused on high value features, And acceptance criteria define what success looks like. They ensure that everyone agrees on when a feature is truly complete. So that brings us to the end of this session. In the next session, we will see how to validate the story and epics from a tester's perspective.